What's up, guys? We have this really cool 1972 FJ40 Land Cruiser with us, and what's even cooler is that we have all three of the truck's owners with us as well. So with me here is, can you please introduce yourself?
Larry Lane.
Larry, welcome. And Larry, can you tell us, first off, when did you buy this truck?
My wife and I bought it in 1972, the end of it, 72. We had moved from Austin to Denver, and we liked backpacking. And the vehicle we had at the time wouldn't go up any four-wheel drive roads. We chose the FJ because it's a Toyota. Mainly we thought, well, this is going to be a very reliable vehicle. Turned out it was. So we took it everywhere. We did a lot of different four-wheel drive roads. We used it in the winter. One story I have of that is going over Levita Pass in a snowstorm, and I had chains on the front end, and there was no traffic on the road, and we come around this curve, and it's sort of steep, and there's 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground, and the wipers are barely keeping up with it, and there's ice underneath that. But we didn't have any problems. But here comes a tractor trailer with the trailer covering 2.5 of the 3 lanes, just slowly sliding down the incline, and we just zipped right around it and went on up, and it stopped about 100 feet down below us, and we kept going. Very reliable. Off-road, we did all kinds, Mosquito Pass, Mackinac. I ended up keeping the car for 26 years. And tried to maintain it. Had it overhauled at about 170,000 miles, the engine. But obviously rusting, and certain things weren't working. The back seat heater went out, and I had to do something with the wipers, replace the motor in that. Other than that, just maintenance.
Just basic maintenance, and it kept going.
It was, it was a great car. And the last several years I had another vehicle, so I didn't drive it much, and it just sat. But I have no complaint. It was
it
wonderful.
treated you well.
And off road. And that's why we bought it, for off-road. On the highway, no.
Not the best.
Not much fun.
A little jiggly, maybe.
Yeah, it was rough. Rough, and getting more than 2 people in it wasn't comfortable at all for folks in the back seat. The fold-down rear seats, and they're probably not very safe either. But we didn't do that too often. We had a dog, so he rode in the back. I love the car.
Good deal. I know you said that the odometer eventually broke.
It did.
But do you know how many miles you maybe put on the car?
It was over 200,000, maybe 210, 220. I'm not sure. I don't really remember.
And it was still running up to the day you sold it?
It was running pretty good. It was still rough, and I imagine shocks and some other stuff needed to be replaced. But I didn't notice any big differences.
Well, that's fantastic, and conveniently, we have the next owner with us. So, Larry, thank you so much.
Oh, you bet.
And Paul, do you want to hop in here and we can talk about your time? So, welcome. Can you say your name for the camera really quick?
Sure. My name's Paul Schneider.
Paul, so let's start, I guess. We know you bought the car after Larry had had it for 26 years. So we figure, that's about 1998 or so?
I think that's right.
That sounds about right. And how much did you pay for it?
We paid $500 for it.
$500 for a running FJ40.
Larry was motivated to sell because he was moving out of the country. So. Sure. So we live in the foothills. So we bought the thing. I used to have an old 75, so I've always loved the cruisers. But we bought it as a plow vehicle. Because we live on a private road. We have a long driveway. So a lot of snow in the winter. So that was our purpose. As much as I love these machines, it's not the ideal plow vehicle because the hydraulics, the old bumper came out maybe a little bit further, so the hydraulics were mounted further away from the grill than they typically might be. So the plow was out further than it would be, and then of course no power steering made it somewhat of a difficult problem. So we had it until 2006 when we sold it to Kent. But it did a fine job plowing, and I think one good story I remember about it is the big blizzard in 2003, I think it was. We had about 6 feet of snow out of that storm at our place, and it's probably the only time this thing's been stuck in its life. And I had chains on all 4 wheels, and it was all I could do to get it into our driveway, and it just stayed there for a few days
for a little while
till we could dig out from it. But aside from that, it did fine until one day plowing snow, as the current owner Kent will probably say, I blew up the engine on it. So just close to the end of our driveway, put a rod through the side of the block. Oops. And had a friend pull me into the driveway eventually.
And there it's sat for a little bit
until we were able to sell it to Kent. So.
There you go. Well, so did you ever use it for anything other than plowing, or was it strictly a plow vehicle?
It had chains on it year round, so strictly a plow vehicle. There you go. Unfortunately, so.
Very interesting. You didn't change anything else on it? You left it all original?
Yep, everything was all original. Didn't change anything other than putting the plow on the front.
And I anticipate then that in its life as a plow vehicle for 10 or so years, 8 or so years, that it maybe started to develop a little bit of rust towards the end of that lifetime.
Yeah, and it had rust when we got it, and it's got rust in all the classic cruiser spots, right?
Exactly.
But so it was in much rougher shape than the condition you see it in today, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, very cool. I guess that does it for us. And then Kent, do you want to hop in here? We'll swap out one more time. How much did you pay for it?
Well, I paid $900 for it. He was asking $950, but I could just see from the pictures that it was an all original condition FJ40 that would be a perfect project to begin with.
So from there, you bought it for $900. I guess first order of business was getting it running.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So I did end up finding a 1975 2F motor, and it was supposed to be a running motor, but as I kind of looked at it, looked at the bearings on the crankshaft, they were worn, so I just ended up rebuilding the entire motor, and started with that. Once I got it running, it just kind of evolved from there. I was originally going to keep it all original, but I drive it, and I want to get up to the mountains to explore with it. And there are a lot of great products that people have made for FJ40s, so it's been evolving over time.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly from our last time we met, you have a $1,000 a year budget to work on this FJ. So maybe we can go ahead and
I try to stick within that $1,000 a year budget. First was the motor. That was over $1,000 a year, but that's where it started. Then I think the next thing I did was front disc brakes. So found a front axle off of a 1977 and just swapped out the brake calipers and everything. Kept the original axle, but took all the components off the 77 front axle to put disc brakes on it, which made a big improvement in stopping because it's got drums in the back and it had drums in the front. From there, I think it was the interior was next, because the seats were fairly worn out.
Yeah, if you walk up there, I'll walk around on the other side.
So there's a company out of California that makes a really nice kit for the seats, so just went through, had to replace a couple springs in the driver's seat. And there's a great Land Cruiser community in Colorado, so I posted out there that said, does anybody have any springs? And next thing I knew, a couple springs showed up in the mail for seats, so replaced those. And let's see, what was next? Oh, the next thing I think was the roll cage.
This is a serious
my brother and I do our little annual bro venture, and we went over Mosquito Pass between Leadville and Breckenridge. Wow. And originally these didn't come with any type of roll bar. And I usually consult with my brother, okay, what do we want to get next? And after Mosquito Pass, he did not even hesitate to say we need a roll bar or a roll cage. So that was next. I don't know. Then it was probably bumpers, the rear cooler carrier and tire spare tire carrier. That just takes a lot of weight off the body and puts it on the frame. So we always put a gas can and a cooler in the back here.
Nice.
And that's just a really great product.
And who makes this bumper?
4 Plus products.
Okay.
They're out in Arizona, and they make the front bumper as well. These fenders are notorious for rusting out. This side, I had a dent in it. This was dented. This was dented. That's why it's different colors. So I just always keep an eye on various websites where parts might pop up. And this one actually may be one of the last OEM front left fenders that were ever available. So this is still primer from the factory, which is faded because I haven't painted it yet. These I just picked up from a guy who was parting out a Land Cruiser. This one came from another guy in Boulder. So yeah, I've always got an eye out for different parts. Yeah, it's been a fun project. I'm just so glad that the previous owners are here to kind of reminisce about it and tell their stories. So
Yeah,
it's a fun project.
when we find people with cool old used cars, you know, it's usually the case that they maybe know the story of the vehicle before they owned it. But in your case, you actually keep in touch with the two guys that owned it before you. So, guys, why don't you come over here and let's talk about this a little bit, because it's really unique to have 3 different owners that all still keep in touch. So, it's my understanding that Larry, you and Paul, you two knew each other initially.
Correct.
So, can you explain your relationship then, really quick?
Well, I lived close to his parents, and he had worked in, where were you? Kentucky?
West Virginia.
West Virginia, and returned and had an FJ.
Yeah.
And saw mine sitting out in front of the house, and it wasn't exactly new then. In fact, it was rusting a bit, but I was still using it. So we got to know each other in that, and played tennis and camped together, and since then we've gone on various trips with, not so much with the FJ, but other 4-wheel drive vehicles that we've had.
Yeah.
So that's how we got to know each other.
And then when you purchased the vehicle from Paul, you kind of made a point to keep up with giving these guys updates on the vehicles.
Yeah, so at first I think it was about every Christmas I'd send a note just saying what I had done to the Land Cruiser and some of the adventures I'd been on. And he loved them. He said, hey, keep sending them. So I just kept sending him updates. I noticed one year I'd missed a few years, but it didn't seem to matter. Paul would always respond and say, hey, keep sending the updates. We love to see what's going on. I always share them with my friend Larry. So just kept doing that.
That's really
And
cool.
I love seeing them.
Yeah.
And a video recently that he had of you know, using it out in 4-wheel drive roads
Yeah.
and stuff. It was great.
So-
I'd like it back.
When was the last time you guys saw the vehicle before today, in person? Do you know?
When I sold it to Paul.
Was that the last time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went to New Zealand for a few years, and
Yeah.
that's the last I saw of it until I saw pictures.
So this is a reunion of like 40-something years here, isn't it?
It
That's
is.
pretty incredible.
It
That's
is.
really cool.
It's amazing.
What do you think of it in its
Yeah,
current-
yeah. What do you think of what's happened to it over the years?
I think it's amazing. You know, I mean, it's such a great job that he's doing, and giving himself a timeline, and you know, just plugging away on it. I can't wait to see it in another year or two. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping I can see it again. You
Yeah.
know, then.
Yeah,
So,
it's
no,
really come along nicely. it
And
looks
I got
like.
to drive it around and put it in here, and it took me back.
Yeah, yeah.
And just the purr of that engine, right?
Yeah.
The sound that it makes, it's just a classic.
Yeah, it's a really cool truck. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming out here. I know it's not easy to coordinate 3 people's different schedules, but it's really special to be able to hear about a cool truck on its own, but also the cool story that's behind the truck. So, Ken, thanks for bringing it by.
thanks for inviting
Larry,
me.
nice to
You
meet
bet.
you.
Nice
Thanks for
meeting
coming
you.
by.
You bet.
Paul,
Thank
thanks
you.
again.
Okay, one more question for you guys.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Where do you see the truck going? What's your
Ooh, that's important.
What's your end goal?
Lights in the
bumper?
in the bumper, yeah. So my end goal is to, just get it all painted, make sure it's just continuing to be a reliable off-road adventure vehicle. I mean, that's what I intended to use it for, and someday it'll all be the same color and all the rust will be gone. So that's the ultimate end goal.
Do you think you'll keep it green?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That was written in the sales agreement.
That's mandatory.
Couldn't change the
No
color.
options there.
Cool. Awesome.
Very cool. Awesome.